He walked slowly through the broken battlefield, his boots pressing into ash-and-burned metal. The air was heavy and quiet, like the war had ended but the fear was still alive. Captain Ilias Varn did not stop. His mission was simple, clear and cold. Destroy all remaining alien weapons, no survivors, no mistakes. The sky above him was dark with smoke. Pieces of ships were scattered everywhere, some still burning, some already silent. The ground looked like it had been torn apart. Nothing felt alive here anymore. Ilias moved forward with steady steps, his weapon ready in his hands, his eyes scanning every shadow. He had done missions like this before. Clean up what was left, remove every threat, finish what the war started. But today felt different. There was a strange signal on his wrist device, weak but active, coming from somewhere under the ruins ahead. It should not be there, not after total destruction. He stopped for a moment, then followed it. He pushed aside broken metal and fallen walls until he found something hidden. A half-buried door, still powered, still alive. Ilias frowned and forced it open. The metal made a loud sound as it moved, and cold air rushed out from inside. Clean and controlled, very different from the hot, ruined world outside. He stepped in carefully, his weapon raised, ready for anything. Inside, the lights flickered weakly. Long, empty corridors stretched in front of him. The walls were covered in strange alien symbols. Broken screens blinked with dying energy. And some machines were still running with a low humming sound. It felt wrong, like something inside this place refused to die. Ilias walked deeper, slow and alert, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Then, he heard something, a very soft sound, almost like a small breath. He froze instantly, his grip on the weapon tightened. His eyes moved toward the direction of the sound, deeper inside the facility. Step by step, he followed it, careful and quiet. The corridor opened into a large chamber, and what he saw made him stop. Rows of glass tanks stood across the room, many of them broken. Liquid spread across the floor, wires hanging loose. Inside some tanks were strange shapes, lifeless and still. Failed creations, not soldiers, not beings, weapons. Ilias felt a cold weight inside his chest. This place was not just a lab, it was a factory for something dangerous, something made only for war. Then he noticed something different. One tank was still standing, untouched, glowing softly at the far end of the room, and something inside it moved. Slowly, Ilias walked toward it, his weapon rising again, ready to complete his mission. As he got closer, the shape became clear. It was small, too small to be a weapon. Inside the tank was a little alien girl, floating in a clear liquid, her body weak, her skin glowing faintly, thin lines of light moving under her skin like energy. Her eyes were closed, her small hand resting against the glass. Ilias stopped just a few steps away, his finger resting on the trigger. A broken screen beside the tank suddenly turned on, flickering with weak light. Words appeared slowly. Subject to 17, final weapon. Status active. His jaw tightened. This was it. The last weapon, the most dangerous one. His mission was clear. Destroy it. He raised his weapon fully, aiming at the tank. For a moment, everything went silent. Then suddenly, the girl's eyes opened. They glowed softly, but they were not filled with anger. They were filled with fear. She moved slowly inside the tank, drifting closer to the glass, her small hand lifting and pressing gently against it. She looked directly at him, not like an enemy, like a lost child. Ilias felt something shift inside him, something he had not felt in a long time. His finger trembled on the trigger. The girl leaned closer, her lips moving slowly, her voice weak and soft. Da! The sound hit him deeply. A memory flashed in his mind, a small hand in his, a voice calling him the same way, a life he had lost in the war. His breathing became heavy, his aim no longer steady. This was wrong. This was not how it was supposed to be. This was just a weapon. But she did not look like one. She looked like someone who needed help. Suddenly, alarms started ringing loudly, red lights flashing across the room. The system had detected him. Time was running out. His orders were clear, but his heart was not. Ilias closed his eyes for a second, then made his choice. His finger moved. not to fire, but to lower the weapon. He stepped closer to the tank, ignoring the alarms, ignoring everything else. The girl watched him quietly, trusting him. With one strong hit, Elias broke the glass tank. It shattered loudly, liquid spilling everywhere. The small alien girl fell forward, and Elias reached out and caught her. The alarm screamed through the broken lab, loud and sharp, red lights flashing again and again. The sound filled every corner of the room. Captain Elias held the small alien girl close to his chest. Her body was cold and weak, water dripping from her skin, her breathing slow and uneven. For a moment, he did not move. He just stood there, holding her, while the system shouted warnings around him. Asterisk, asterisk, security breach. Subject A-17 removed, containment failure. Asterisk, asterisk. Elias looked down at her. Her glowing eyes were half open now. Unfocused, confused, not dangerous, just scared. "This is not right," he said quietly, more to himself than to anyone else. His mission was clear: destroy all alien weapons. But this did not feel like a weapon. Another loud alarm burst through the air. Closer this time, Elias snapped back to reality. They will come, he thought. Soldiers, drones, maybe worse, if they find her. They will not hesitate. He tightened his grip around her and quickly moved out of the chamber, his boots splashing through the liquid on the floor. The corridors felt smaller now, darker, like the lab itself was closing in. The girl moved slightly in his arms, her fingers weakly gripping his armor. Elias looked down again. "It's okay," he said softly. Though he was not sure if she understood, her lips moved again. But no clear words came out this time, only a soft sound. He reached a corner and stopped, listening carefully. Footsteps, distant, but coming closer. Search teams were already inside. Elias looked around quickly, his mind racing. He needed to hide her just for a moment, just until he could think. He spotted a broken storage room nearby and moved fast, stepping inside and closing the door halfway, leaving just enough space to see outside. The room was dark, filled with damaged equipment and old crates. He gently placed the girl down behind a large metal box, covering her with a torn cloth he found nearby. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Even though he did not know if she could understand him, her glowing eyes looked up at him, watching him closely. Not with fear now, but with trust. That made his chest feel heavy. Elias turned away and peeked through the small opening in the door. 3 soldiers moved past the corridor, their weapons ready, their voices tense. "Orders are clear," one of them said. "The weapon must not leave this facility." Weapon? They were talking about her. Elias clenched his jaw. "No signs yet," another soldier said. "But the system confirms extraction." They are here, Elias thought. If they find her, it's over. He slowly stepped back into the room, his eyes returning to the girl. She was still watching him, silent. A strange calm filled her face, like she believed he would protect her. Elias shook his head slightly. "Why am I doing this?" he whispered. He had followed orders his entire life, never questioned, never stopped. But now everything felt different. A memory came back to him again, stronger this time. A small girl, laughing, holding his hand, calling him Dad. Then fire, destruction, silence. He closed his eyes tightly, pushing the memory away. When he opened them again, he looked at the alien child in front of him. Something inside him had already changed. "I can't leave you," he said quietly. Another sound came from the hallway, louder this time, closer. They were checking rooms now. No more time. Elias moved quickly, picking her up again, holding her carefully. "We're leaving," he said. He stepped out of the storage room and moved in the opposite direction of the soldiers, his steps fast but controlled. The girl rested against him, her head lightly touching his chest. Her breathing was still weak, but steady. They reached a side corridor that led deeper into the facility, away from the main entrance. Elias knew this path. It connected to an old exit used for transport, rarely checked, his only chance. As he moved, the girl suddenly tightened her grip on his armor. He looked down. Her eyes were glowing brighter now. Something was wrong. The lights around them flickered suddenly. A low vibration filled the air. Metal pieces on the ground began to shake slightly. Elias stopped, confused. Then he realized, it's her. Her fear was doing this. Her power was waking up. No. It's okay, he said quickly, trying to calm her. He held her closer, his voice softer, slower. You're safe. I'm here. The shaking grew stronger for a moment, then slowly stopped. The lights stabilized again. The silence returned. Elias stared at her, shocked. She really is a weapon, he thought. But even now in his arms, she felt like anything but that. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. This changes nothing, he said firmly. I'm still getting you out. And without looking back, Captain Elias Varn ran deeper into the shadows of the facility, carrying the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy, and protecting her like she was his own child. The corridor grew darker as Captain Elias moved deeper into the hidden parts of the facility. The alarms were still echoing behind him, but here the sound was weaker, like the place itself was trying to hide from the chaos above. The small alien girl rested in his arms, her body still weak, but her grip on his armor had become stronger. She was awake now, her glowing eyes slowly moving. Watching everything around her, Elias stopped near a closed metal door, one he remembered from old maps. An unused maintenance room. He forced it open with effort and stepped inside, quickly sealing it behind him. For the first time since the lab, there was silence, real silence. He took a slow breath and gently placed the girl on the floor, using a piece of cloth to make a small space for her to sit. She looked around with curiosity, her head moving slowly, her eyes studying the room like everything was new. Elias crouched in front of her, keeping some distance, his weapon still in his hand but lowered. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he spoke, his voice calm and soft. You need a name, he said quietly. She tilted her head slightly, not understanding the words, but feeling the tone. Elias thought for a second, then said, Lumi. The name felt simple, light. Your name is Lumi, he repeated, pointing gently toward her. She watched him closely, then slowly pointed at herself, copying his action. Me, she whispered, her voice soft and broken. Elias blinked in surprise. She was learning, fast. A faint, almost invisible smile appeared on his face. That's right, he said. For a brief moment, the war outside felt far away, but it did not last. A sudden noise echoed faintly through the walls. Distant footsteps, voices searching. Elias stood up quickly, alert again. They're still looking, he thought. He turned back to Lumi. We can't stay here long, he said. Even though she did not understand the words, she slowly stood up on her own, a little unsteady, but stronger than before. Her eyes locked onto him again, following his every move, like he was the only thing she trusted. Elias walked toward the door and checked it carefully, then looked back at her. Stay close, he said. She stepped forward without hesitation, small steps, but steady, as they moved through another narrow corridor. Lumi suddenly stopped. Elias noticed and turned. What is it? He asked. She was staring at a broken machine on the wall, sparks coming out of it, the wires hanging loose. Her eyes glowed slightly brighter. Then, slowly, she raised her hand. Elias watched carefully, his body tense. The sparks from the machine began to slow down then. They stopped completely. The machine went silent, fixed. Elias stared in shock. You did that, he whispered. Lumi looked at her hand, then at him, unsure, like she did not fully understand what she had done, before he could say anything more. A loud sound came from the other side of the corridor, voices much closer now. Check every section, a soldier shouted. No one leaves this facility. Elias grabbed Lumi's hand quickly and pulled her into a side passage, moving faster now. They are getting close, he thought. As they turned a corner, a group of armed soldiers suddenly appeared at the far end of the hallway. Both sides froze for a second. Then one soldier shouted, There, stop! Elias reacted instantly, pulling Lumi behind a metal wall as shots were fired. Energy blasts hitting the surface with loud impacts. Stay down, he said, covering her. Lumi's breathing became faster, her small hands gripping his arm tightly. Fear filled her eyes again. The lights above them started flickering wildly. The air felt heavy. Elias felt it immediately. Not again, he thought. The metal walls around them began to shake, small pieces rising slightly from the ground. The soldiers stopped firing for a moment, confused. "What is happening?" One of them shouted. Lumi's glow became stronger, brighter than before. Energy started building around her, visible, unstable. Elias quickly turned to her, grabbing her shoulders gently. "Lumi, listen," he said, his voice firm but calm. "You're safe. I'm here." She looked at him, her glowing eyes shaking with fear. The energy around her pulsed once, strong enough to crack the wall beside them. Elias did not move back. He stayed right in front of her. "Look at me," he said softly. "Focus on me." For a long second, everything felt like it would explode, then slowly. The light around her faded. The shaking stopped. The silence returned. The soldiers, confused and afraid, began to move back, unsure of what they had just seen. Elias took a deep breath, relief washing over him. He looked at Lumi again. She looked tired, but calmer, like she was learning, not just power, but control. Elias stood up slowly and helped her up. "We have to keep moving," he said. This time, she did not hesitate. She stayed close to him, her small hand holding onto his armor, and together, they disappeared deeper into the dark corridors, a soldier, and a child who was never meant to be one. The deeper levels of the facility were quieter, but not safe. Captain Elias moved carefully through a narrow passage, his steps slow, his eyes alert. Every sound felt louder in the silence. Lumi walked close beside him, her small hand lightly holding a piece of his armor. She did not speak much, but her glowing eyes followed everything, learning, watching, understanding more with each step. They reached a locked control room at the end of the corridor. The door was damaged but still working. A faint light coming from inside. Elias paused, then forced it open. Inside, the room was filled with old screens and control panels, many broken, some still active. Soft lights blinking in the dark. This place might have answers, he thought. He moved toward the main system and started searching through the data, his fingers moving fast across the controls, trying to find anything about Subject A17. Lumi stayed behind him, looking at the screens with quiet curiosity. After a few seconds, one screen flickered strongly, then stabilized. Files opened slowly, like the system was waking up after a long sleep. Elias read the first line, and his expression changed instantly. ***, Project Final Light. Objective, creation of ultimate living weapon. ***, his jaw tightened. He kept reading. ***, Subject A17 designed with adaptive intelligence, emotional response control, and unlimited energy absorption capability. Elias felt a cold chill run through him. Unlimited energy, that explained what he had seen. He scrolled further, his eyes moving faster now. Primary function, planetary destruction. Secondary function, enemy control and elimination. He stopped, his hand freezing on the screen. Planetary destruction. She was not just a weapon. She was the end of worlds. Behind him, Lumi stepped a little closer, looking at the glowing screen. Elias turned his head slowly and looked at her. She did not look like destruction. She looked small, quiet, and lost. "How can this be you?" he whispered. Another file opened automatically, a video log. The screen showed scientists standing around the same tank he had broken, their faces serious, their voices cold. Subject A17 shows rapid emotional learning, one scientist said. "This could be a risk," another replied. "No," a third voice answered. "This is an advantage. We will control the emotional triggers. Fear will activate maximum output." Elias clenched his fists. They had planned everything, even her fear, even her pain. He looked back at Lumi again. She was watching the screen now, her eyes reflecting the images, but there was confusion in her face, like she did not understand why she was made this way. Elias stepped in front of the screen and turned it off. "You don't need to see that," he said softly. Lumi looked up at him. Then slowly she said one word. "Pawn." Elias froze. She heard it. She was learning faster than he expected. He shook his head immediately, kneeling down in front of her. "No," he said firmly but gently. "You are not a weapon." She stared at him, her glowing eyes searching his face. Elias placed a hand on his chest, then pointed to her. "You are Lumi." He paused for a second, then added quietly, "And you're safe." Lumi blinked slowly, processing his words. Then very softly she pointed at him. The word hit him again, deeper this time. Elias looked away for a moment, his throat tightening. He had lost everything once. He was not ready to lose again. A sudden sharp sound broke the moment. A signal alert flashed on one of the side screens. Elias turned quickly and checked it. His face became serious again. "They found us," he said under his breath. A map appeared, showing multiple red markers moving toward their location. Search teams closing in fast and something else. He zoomed in, his eyes narrowing. Not just soldiers, special units. "They are sending hunters now," he thought. That meant one thing. They knew exactly what Lumi was. Elias stood up quickly and grabbed his weapon. "We have to go now," he said. Lumi stood up as well, sensing the urgency. As they moved toward the door, the lights in the room suddenly dimmed, then flickered. Lumi stopped walking. Elias turned back. "What is it?" he asked. Her eyes were glowing again, brighter than before, but this time different, not fear, something else. She slowly looked toward the wall, like she could feel something beyond it. Elias followed her gaze, confused. Then he heard it. Heavy footsteps, not like normal soldiers, slower, stronger, closer. A deep mechanical sound echoed through the corridor outside. Elias tightened his grip on his weapon. "They're here," he whispered. Lumi stepped closer to him, her hand gripping his armor again. For the first time, Elias realized something clearly. The world outside would never see her as a child, only as a threat, only as something to destroy. But standing there, next to him, she was not a weapon. She was just a girl. And without saying anything more, Elias opened the door slowly, ready to face whatever was coming. Not as a soldier following orders, but as someone protecting his child. The corridor outside the control room was no longer silent. Heavy footsteps echoed closer with each second. The sound was slow but powerful, like something built for war was moving through the facility. Captain Elias stepped out first, his weapon raised, his body positioned between Lumi and the danger ahead. His eyes sharp, his breathing steady. Lumi stayed close behind him, her small hand gripping his armor, her glowing eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Then they saw it, at the far end of the corridor. A large figure stepped into the light, tall, armored, not fully human, its body covered in heavy metal plating, its eyes glowing red. A hunter unit, not a normal soldier, something designed to fight things like her. Elias felt the tension rise instantly. They didn't send this for nothing, he thought. The machine stopped and locked its gaze on Lumi. Ignoring Elias completely, a cold mechanical voice echoed. "Target confirmed, subject A-17. Eliminate." Without warning, it raised its weapon and fired. Elias reacted fast, grabbing Lumi and diving behind a broken wall as the blast hit, the impact shaking the entire corridor. "Stay down!" he shouted. More shots followed, each one stronger than the last, tearing through metal like it was nothing. Elias knew they could not stay here. "We have to move," he said quickly. He looked around and spotted a side passage, narrow and dark. "Come on." He pulled Lumi with him and ran, their footsteps echoing fast as they moved deeper into the facility. Behind them, the heavy footsteps started again. Not rushing, not panicking, just following, like it knew they had nowhere to go. They turned multiple corners, trying to lose it, but the sound never stopped. It was always there, always behind them. Lumi's breathing became faster, her grip tightening again. Elias looked down briefly. "It's okay, keep moving," he said, though even he was not sure anymore. Suddenly, the passage ended in a wide-open section. Broken walls, exposed wires, and no clear exit. Elias stopped, scanning quickly. "Not good," he whispered. A loud crash echoed behind them. The hunter unit broke through the wall, stepping into the open area, dust and debris falling around it. There was no escape now. Elias stepped forward. Placing himself fully in front of Lumi, his weapon aimed. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. The machine moved closer, slow and unstoppable. "You cannot protect the target," it said in a cold voice. "Step aside." Elias did not move. Instead, he fired, multiple shots hitting the machine's armor. Sparks flying, but it barely slowed down. It raised its arm again, charging another powerful blast. Elias knew he could not stop it alone. He had seconds. He glanced back at Lumi. She was shaking now, fear clear in her eyes. And then it started. The air around them shifted. The ground began to vibrate slightly. Small pieces of metal lifted into the air. Elias turned fully toward her. "Lumi, listen to me," he said quickly, stepping closer, ignoring the danger. "You have to stay calm." The glow around her grew stronger, brighter than before. Energy formed around her body. Unstable, powerful. The machine fired. Elias reacted instantly, turning his body to shield her. The blast hit near them, throwing him to the ground, his armor cracking, pain shooting through his side. "Elias." The word came from her, clearer than before. He looked up, shocked. She had said his name, not just a sound. A real word. Her eyes were now shining like pure light, tears forming as the energy around her exploded outward. A wave of force burst from her. The walls cracked, the ground split. The machine was thrown back violently, crashing into the far wall. Everything went silent for a second. Dust filled the air. Elias struggled to sit up, his body in pain. "Lumi," he whispered. She stood there, glowing, breathing heavily, her hands shaking. The machine slowly tried to stand again, damaged but still active. "Target power level. Critical," it said, its voice glitching. Elias forced himself up, ignoring the pain. He moved toward her, slowly, carefully. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." She looked at him, tears falling now, the energy around her unstable again. "I hurt," she said, her voice breaking. Elias shook his head, stepping closer. "No, you didn't mean to." He reached her and gently held her shoulders. "Listen to me," he said, his voice calm but strong. "You're not a weapon." The glow flickered. "You're not made to destroy." The energy around her started to weaken. "You're my child." For a moment, everything stopped, then slowly. The light faded. The shaking ended. Lumi collapsed forward, weak again. Elias caught her before she hit the ground, holding her tightly, behind them. The machine finally shut down, sparks falling as it powered off completely. Silence returned, heavy but different now. Elias looked down at Lumi, her eyes closing slowly, her breathing calm again. He took a deep breath, his body still in pain, but his mind clear. There's no going back now, he thought. The entire system would know what happened here. They would send more, stronger, faster. He adjusted his grip on her and stood up again. "We're leaving this place," he said quietly, not as a soldier following orders, but as a father protecting his child. The silence after the fight did not feel peaceful. It felt heavy, like the entire facility was holding its breath. Captain Elias stood in the broken corridor, his armor cracked, his body aching, but his grip on Lumi never loosened. The hunter unit behind them was finally down, sparks fading from its broken frame. But Elias knew it would not matter for long. More would come, stronger ones. He looked down at Lumi. She was unconscious again, her small body resting against his chest, her breathing soft but steady. "You used too much power," he whispered, as if she could hear him. He adjusted his hold and started moving. There was no time left. Every alarm in the facility was now fully active. Red lights flashing everywhere, systems warning of full containment failure. The entire base had marked them. Elias moved fast through the damaged corridors, following an old emergency route he remembered from mission files. It was their only way out. The deeper he went, the more unstable the structure became, walls shaking, metal groaning under pressure, like the place itself was dying. But he did not stop, not even once. Lumi shifted slightly in his arms, her fingers twitching weakly. Elias looked down for a moment. "It's okay," he said softly. "We're almost out." Ahead, a large sealed door came into view, covered in dust and warning signs. the emergency exit to the surface. Elias ran toward it and placed his hand on the control panel. It was damaged. He tried again, forcing energy through the system. Sparks flew, and for a moment nothing happened. "Come on," he muttered. Behind him, a distant sound echoed, metal moving, heavy steps returning. Something else was still active. Elias turned his head slightly. "No," he whispered. He pressed harder on the panel, and finally the system responded. The door began to open slowly, grinding metal against metal, revealing a thin line of light from outside, fresh air, real air. But before he could move, the sound behind him grew louder. The hunter unit was not fully gone. It was dragging itself forward. Broken, but still functional, Elias tightened his grip on Lumi. "Not now," he said through his teeth. The door opened halfway, not enough. The machine stepped into view again, its body damaged, but its core still glowing. "Target still active," it said in a broken voice. Elias looked at the opening, then at Lumi. He made a decision in a second. He ran, straight toward the exit, ignoring everything behind him. The machine fired. The blast hit near his side, throwing him forward, but he did not stop. He protected Lumi with his body as they reached the doorway. Then he jumped through, rolling onto the surface outside. Cold wind hit him instantly, sharp and real. He lay there for a moment, breathing heavily, still holding Lumi. Behind them, the facility trembled, alarms screaming louder than ever. Then a massive explosion echoed from below. The entire structure began to collapse, sinking into itself like it was swallowing its own secrets. Elias slowly sat up, looking at the destruction. "It's over," he whispered. But even as he said it, he knew it was not true. This was not the end, only the beginning of what would come after. Lumi stirred in his arms, slowly waking up. Her eyes opened weakly, looking at the burning ruins behind them, then at him. For a moment she said nothing, just watching. Elias gently adjusted her position, sitting her up slightly. "We're outside now," he said softly. "You're safe." She looked around slowly, seeing the open sky, the broken land, the wind moving across the surface. It was the first time she had seen the world outside the facility. Everything felt too big for her, too open, too real. She tightened her grip on Elias again. "Scared?" she whispered. Elias nodded slightly. "I know," he said. He looked at the collapsing facility one last time, smoke rising into the sky, everything that created her, now destroyed. But that did not erase what she was, or what they would come for next. Elias slowly stood up, holding her close. "We can't stay here," he said. His voice was calm, but firm. He looked toward the distant horizon, empty land stretching far beyond what he could see. No base, no army, no support, just survival. Lumi rested her head against him again, tired but calm. Elias started walking, step by step, away from the burning ruins. The world behind them was ending, but ahead there was nothing yet. And for the first time since the war began, he was not walking as a soldier. He was walking as someone who had something left to protect. The sky above the ruined planet was pale and silent, as if the world itself had finally stopped fighting. Captain Elias walked slowly across the broken ground, carrying Lumi in his arms, each step heavy but steady. Behind them, the destroyed facility was still burning in the distance, smoke rising like a fading memory of war. There were no alarms now, no gunfire, only wind moving across empty land. Lumi was awake again, but quiet, her small hands resting gently against Elias's armor, her glowing eyes watching the world around her for the first time without fear. Everything felt too big for her, too open, too unknown. "Where go?" she asked softly, her voice still weak but clearer than before. Elias looked ahead at the endless land, broken hills and shattered ground stretching far into the horizon. "Somewhere safe," he replied quietly, even though he did not know where that was yet. He had no base now, no orders, no command, only her. They walked for a long time, the silence between them no longer heavy, but calm. At one point, Elias stopped near a small broken structure, what was once part of an old settlement, now just ruins. He gently set Lumi down on a flat piece of stone. She looked around slowly, touching the ground. The wind, the dust, like everything was new to her. Elias sat beside her, his back against a broken wall, finally allowing himself to breathe properly. For the first time in a long time, there was no mission, no war, only silence. Lumi looked at him for a long moment, then slowly moved closer, resting her head against his arm. Safe. Here, she said softly, almost like she was asking. Elias nodded. For now, he answered. A faint wind passed through the ruins, carrying dust across the ground. Lumi watched it carefully, then reached out her hand, trying to catch it. Elias noticed a small smile forming on his face. She was learning the world, not as a weapon, but as a child. Minutes passed like that, quiet and still. Then suddenly, Lumi spoke again. Why? Me? Elias turned his head slightly, looking at her. She was staring at her own hands, like she was trying to understand what she was. He stayed silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. They made you, he said slowly. But they were wrong. Lumi tilted her head, confused. Wrong? Elias nodded. They thought you were a tool, he said. But they never saw you. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder. You are not what they built, he continued. You are what you choose to be. Lumi stayed quiet, thinking deeply in her small way. Then she looked up at him. Choose. Me? She repeated. Elias gave a small nod. You chose me too, he said softly. Lumi blinked slowly, processing the idea. Then, very gently, she said, Dad. The word was soft, but clear. Elias felt something tighten in his chest, but this time it was not pain. It was something else. Something he thought he had lost forever. He looked away for a moment, then back at her. Yeah, he said quietly. I'm here. A long silence followed. But it was not empty. It was warm. Far away, on another part of the planet, distant signals began to activate. Unknown ships picking up the destruction, analyzing the data. The war had not forgotten this place, and it would not ignore what escaped from it. But here, in this moment, Elias did not think about that. He only looked at Lumi, sitting beside him, alive, breathing, learning. She leaned closer again, her small hand gripping his sleeve. Stay, she asked, almost afraid of the answer. Elias looked at the horizon, then back at her. There was no easy answer, no safe future waiting. But he knew one thing clearly. He had already stayed when he should have left, so he nodded. Yeah, he said softly. I stay. Lumi's expression changed slightly, like she finally understood something important. She moved closer and hugged his arm tightly. Elias did not move away. He just sat there, letting the wind pass around them. The world was still broken. Danger was still out there. But for the first time in a long time, he was not just surviving a war. He was protecting a life that had chosen him. And as the sun slowly began to rise over the ruins, a soldier and a child who was never meant to exist sat together in a silent world, starting something neither of them understood yet. But both of them had already decided to protect.